What if hitting rock bottom was the very thing that saved your life? In today's episode, I'm joined by Angie Hawkins, inner glow coach and author of Running in Slippers, to talk about her journey from emotional numbness and self loathing to radical self love and healing. We dive into how childhood wounds shape our self worth, why emotional regulation is everything, and what it really takes to feel whole again. If you've ever felt like you're doing everything right but still feel empty inside, this one's for you. Let's dive in. Hi, Angie. Welcome to You Will Be Okay. I am so excited to have you on.
Hi, Sabrina. Thank you for having me.
So your backstory is so raw and so inspiring. Can you just take us back to the moment where everything cracked open for you and what led to your rock bottom and how you shifted afterward?
Yes. So how it all started, this is how it all starts for all of us, was in my childhood. I grew up in a home that was really emotionally neglectful. And, as an adult, because I've gone through coaching and therapy and done the inner work, so I can now understand why my parents are the way they are. And I understand that's not a reflection of me at all. But, as a child, we seek to understand why. And my interpretation of that environment was that I didn't deserve to be loved. So then that developed as my internal belief. And as most of us are aware, your internal beliefs are what dictate your behaviors. And then your behaviors is what dictates the world around you. So I went through life with this belief that I didn't deserve to be loved. So I would attract people and experiences that reflected that back to me. I also treated myself in unloving ways. I suffered from eating disorders for over 20 years. I overexercised, I underate, and it was just this self-torture and self-loathing that I was basically turning inward within myself. So as you can imagine, life is not pleasant when you're living it with this internal belief. And where it really started to affect me was in 2017, my dad passed away. Well, first of all, my boyfriend broke up with me. And then shortly thereafter, my dad passed away. So I was going through two really hard things at the same time. And at that point, I was 37 and I had spent 37 years numbing my emotions, stuffing them down, doing anything I could not to actually feel them. But going through these two hard things at once, it forced me for the very first time in my life. Like I couldn't stuff them down if I tried. It was just like this overflowing of emotions that I could not repress. So for the first time in my life, I actually had to feel my feelings. And it led me to this path of self-reflection. And I realized how I had been living my life wasn't working. And I wanted to change, but I didn't really know how. So in an attempt to make my life happier and better, I decided to move from Chicago to Hawaii, which I think the intention was there, but I was searching for something outside of myself to make me feel better. And adding on to that, even before my dad died in my 30s, I went through this quote unquote healing journey. But in hindsight, it was really only half-hearted because it's like I was going to yoga or I was going to these healing workshops, seeking something outside of myself and not really doing the inner work. So it was just like this whole lifetime of seeking outside myself of love and acceptance. So I moved to Hawaii and, as you can imagine, like you can't move away from your problems. So I still had the same issues. And not only that, I had extra issues because just from a huge transition. So for example, this was in 2018 before remote work was the popular thing to do. So I was extremely fortunate that my job let me keep my job and work remotely from here. However, around the time that I moved, there was a huge management shakeup. So the first year that I lived here, I lived in constant fear of losing my job. I had a really hard time making friends when I first moved here. And another thing that happened is to prove my commitment to the move, I bought a condo immediately and I was so proud of myself. But then like a month after I closed, a shared pipe in the building backflowed into my bathroom sink when I wasn't home and my entire condo flooded, which that would have been stressful at any point in my life or any point in anyone's life. But, it just exacerbated to my issues. Because again, I had like the same emotional issues. I had this fear of losing my job. I was so isolated and didn't feel like I had any friends. And now my condo flooded. And it didn't end there. There was like, for 2 years, it was like one thing after another after another. Like my grandma died. I had some toxic friendships when I did finally make friends. And because I was reaching outside of myself for all of these things to make me feel better, and all of these things outside of me were actually falling apart, I was so ungrounded and falling apart with these things as well. And then COVID happened, which I don't think I have to describe how that affected my mental health. But during COVID, because the ocean was opened, because the state doesn't have jurisdiction over the ocean, so I learned how to surf. And the person who was teaching me how to surf, he was married, but his wife had moved back to New Zealand. Originally he told me it was because of COVID, and I don't even remember what he told me, to be honest. But then we became friends, and he confided in me that him and his wife were separating. And then when she was moving back, they were splitting up and moving on. So then our relationship became romantic, and it was like all rainbows and unicorns for like 6 months. And I actually started to feel like, okay, things are turning around. Because again, it had been like 2.5 years of just struggle, which some of it was self-inflicted. I take accountability for that. But then his wife came back, and he was like, oh, by the way, we have to stay married for 2 more years so that she can get her green card. Oh my God. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back. I was just like, I cannot handle lifing anymore. So I intentionally overdosed on my anxiety medication because, a human being can only take so much. And I had already been struggling my entire life, and I just had enough. So I spent a day and a half unconscious in my bathroom somehow.
Wait, a day and a half unconscious?
Yes.
Wow. And you survived. Obviously,
yeah.
You're here. But
yes, it is actually amazing when I stop to think about it, because my anxiety medication, just to give you some context, it was so strong that I would take a half pill before I went to bed, because it was so strong. A half pill would knock me out cold for 8 hours. I took 32 entire pills. I was blacked out, but somehow I texted a friend and she took me to the hospital. So there's something about that even though my brain and ego didn't want me to be here, I think my soul, still wanted to be here. And when I got out of the hospital, because I was in the hospital for a day and a half, so I was completely off the grid for 3 days, basically. So I got out of the hospital, I turned on my phone, and I had a bunch of texts. One of my friends was particularly concerned because I was supposed to go she was having a workshop. I obviously didn't show up. And she was like, are you okay? Are you okay? And so I called her when I got home, and I told her what happened. And I ended with, I can't believe I didn't die. And her response was, it's not your time. And that was so profound to me. And I was like, she's right. And in that moment, I'm like, I'm determined to figure out what my purpose is and live out that purpose.
Wow. Holy moly.
Yeah, it's a lot. It was a lot to go through it.
I can't even imagine. And you wrote a memoir on this whole experience, right? Running in
Yes. And honestly, because I did write a book about it, which goes into way more detail than what I just described. But honestly, even the original version of the book was twice as long, and I had to edit and cut it down. So even the book doesn't even cover every single thing.
Right. Tell me about the title Running in Slippers. That's very evocative. What did that mean to you then? And what does it mean to you now?
So in Hawaii, flip-flops are called slippers. So it really means running in flip-flops.
Okay.
How I came up with the title is in the introduction of the book, so I won't give that away. But the overall meaning is running in slippers is a metaphor for life, because if you're running in flip-flops, it can be fun and playful and adventurous. It can also be scary, dangerous, and painful if and when you fall.
Right.
So it's a metaphor for life because that's how I feel like life is.
I love that. So part of your journey also is that you walked away from a six-figure career and a life that looked from the outside to be successful. What did that unraveling teach you about real success and self-worth?
So part of actually the only healing journey I had, because again, in my 30s, I thought I was doing healing practices by reaching outside of myself for things. But after my attempt, I was like, I need help. And traditional therapy had never worked for me. And I was ready to invest in myself. So I hired a coach, and that's how I learned that true happiness and fulfillment comes from within. And through practices, so I changed my internal beliefs. I changed how I was living my life. I came up with my own rules for life. So for example, I am loyal to myself. I, shine my own light, et cetera, et cetera. I have like a whole list of values that I live my life by. And so I had cleaned up a lot of things in my life, like, for example, the people I was surrounding myself with. I wrote the book to become more aligned with my purpose. However, I was still working in this corporate job that was super soul sucking, yet it paid very well. I had the benefits, I had the stability. So I had all of these excuses as to why I should still be in that job. And it got to the point that I had to be, I would love to say that I was strong enough to leave on my own accord. But what actually happened was I was transferred to this team, and my manager was basically a mean girl bully. That's like the very nice way of putting it. And it was so miserable and toxic and my initial thought was I'll just get another job. I'll just transfer to another team. But when I really stopped to think about it, it's I'm not being true to myself. This work is not aligned with who I am. And that was the kick in the butt from the universe that I needed. I needed a truly miserable experience in corporate America for me to be this is not for me. And I was partially aligned with my purpose through the book and doing speaking events around the book. But I'm just going to go all in on my purpose and start a coaching business. So That is what I did.
I always tell people when everything's unraveling and everything's going wrong and you are in so much pain and it feels so hopeless, get excited, because that is usually the precursor to the biggest transformation of your life. But it can go one of two ways. It can either go in a direction of breaking you down and making you absolutely miserable, angry, jaded, or it can be the biggest transformation that helps you actualize your potential, realize your sense of purpose, and just takes you to new heights that you couldn't have even imagined before.
Yeah. And it's funny because I was worried about being anxious about money and other things related to starting your own business. But the funny thing is, my anxiety to peace ratio in the corporate world was 90 to 10. Mm-hmm. And now, I do get anxiety about some things because it is hard starting something on your own. But my anxiety to peace ratio is 10 to 90. So it's I do stress about things, but it's so much more healthy now. Because when you're not aligned, just don't fight it.
Exactly. One thing that stood out to me about you is that I love that you're an inner glow coach, right? That's what you call yourself.
Yes.
I've never seen that before. I've seen confidence coach, relationship coach, obviously plenty of that. Tell me about being an inner glow coach and what that means.
Yes. So actually, I'll go back to when I was still in corporate America, and I was kind of playing with the idea of I need to get out of here, but I don't know what I'm going to do. So one day I was having a particularly stressful day one day at work. So after work, I went on a hike, and there was something about this hike. For instance, I go on this hike at least once a month. So it's not a new hike. It actually sometimes is so routine that it's yep, I know which tree's coming up next. But there was something really magical about this hike. I was noticing flowers I've never seen before. I was just noticing all of these things. I was so like I'm usually connected to my intuition and like aligned with the universe, but this was like especially so. And somewhere on this hike, I just had this idea like I can help other women go through the journey that I've been on through basically self-loathing to self-love. And the name of the coaching that came to my mind was Shine from the Inside, because when you find your happiness and fulfillment within, it's literally like this warm ball inside of your chest and you glow. And because within that, like it is an internal happiness and fulfillment, but I'm in my 40s. Like my attempt was when I was 40 and I'm 45 now. I have like the most wrinkles and sun damage that I've ever had. But when you glow from the inside, not only are you happy and fulfilled, you look better. I get more compliments on like how beautiful I am, etc. now than I ever did before. So people can see that. And not only that, you're inspiring other people to shine their light. Yeah. And I'm a big proponent. You're either contributing to raising the vibration of the universe or contributing to the fear and anger propaganda that's also going on right now. So it's like this whole like exponential effect. So I just had this huge epiphany about like, well, I'm shining from the inside now, so I can help other women do this too. And yeah, it was like just this whole epiphany. And again, I wish I could say like the next day I quit and started my own business that day, but it took like many more months for me to actually gather up the courage to carry that out.
Yeah, I mean, believe me, I know all about startup. Honestly, I've never had the stability of corporate life ever. Like I've only known this life, and there have been many incarnations of my career and ups and downs and changing tides, and it's a lot. But when you are aligned with your sense of purpose, and for me, you know, things have not been easy in my life at all. I always felt like this pain has a purpose, and it did. It's my career. Like I turned the pain and turned it into a purpose. And so that is just so fulfilling that, okay, I mean, the stress, there can be a lot of that.
Yeah.
I would never, ever want to trade that for like the stability of doing something that leaves me so empty and unfulfilled and drained.
Yeah, I'm a surfer and I feel like there's so many surfing analogies that align with life. So based on what you just said, surfing, like you have to go through a lot. Like for instance, the other day, it was the aftermath of a tsunami and I went surfing and the waves were like crazy. So like to paddle out, I was like paddling through all this whitewash or whatever. But I did catch some fun waves. And so like, that's also like life. Like it can be a struggle and it can be stressful, but there's also rewarding periods that follow that.
Yes, absolutely. And that's why the key to life, the key to success is grit. It's not IQ, it is grit. It is your ability to persevere through the hard times, which are going to happen. And unfortunately, some of us get hit way harder than others. It's probably due to like past lives. That's what I really do.
No, agree. It's what we agreed to do on this planet.
Right, exactly. And so, yeah, life's not fair. It's not. Some people get it way worse than others, but it's really your ability to navigate and to cope that will determine your level of happiness and peace and satisfaction.
My entire life changed when I learned how to regulate my emotions and cope with life, because that was like a huge part of what was missing. Because again, I was like always reaching for something outside of myself to feel better.
Yeah.
And not to like, I'm not trying to minimize any like external healing modality, or even sometimes you do need the quick hit of something outside of yourself. But the truth is, it's all like you're in control of how you feel.
Yes.
And that changed my entire life.
Oh, absolutely. And most people don't realize that, or even if they realize that, they don't tap into that enough.
Yeah.
They don't tap into what that really means. That the fact that you can absolutely be the architect of your mindset and you're managing your emotions. So speak to that point, because that is, I feel like, especially in this day and age where it is so easy to numb out. It's easier than ever. I mean, you know, we're close enough in age. We remember a time when like boredom existed. Like, remember boredom? That doesn't exist anymore. Remember like the grocery store?
I never like thought of that. You're right.
Yeah, like remember you're just online and that was all there was to do. It's just you and your thoughts and you're waiting online until it's your turn. Now there's none of that. You have your phone, swipe, swipe, swipe. You're on TikTok or you're on the dating apps and you're like we're just so overstimulated and so there's no space for thought and feeling. We could just distract, and there's so many means of like getting that dopamine hit and I'm going to post this and get the emojis. So speak to that, to feeling your emotions and actually processing them and why that's so important.
Yeah. So to your point, I spent most of my life avoiding my emotions. Also, to your point, we didn't have the luxury of scrolling our phones for a majority of our lives, especially our younger years. The ways when I was like in my 20s, I mostly numbed my feelings through alcohol. And then that transitioned into the over exercising aspect because I was actually on another podcast once and in my bio, it was like that I had ran 16 marathons and they were like, oh, that's so cool. And I'm like, and it was actually a podcast about mental health. And I'm like, well, since this is what we're talking about anyway, I'm going to tell you the only reason I ran marathons is because when you go on a long run, you kind of get into that runner's high. So I would only go on long runs basically to numb out my emotions. It wasn't because I was trying to be healthy or anything good, really. It was like I was just trying to numb out. That was the true reason. But then again, I hired a coach, and that was the first time I actually had to feel my feelings. And I was very new at emotional regulation. So I am not going to lie. It's not easy at first to feel your feelings because I think the mindset is like, oh, I'm healing. So it's like has this positive connotation, and it is, but it's not all sunshine and rainbows. It's really hard to feel your feelings, but through doing that and practicing emotional regulation techniques, like I'm at the point I actually get excited about getting triggered because I've been able to, like, so for instance, if I get triggered about something, it used to take me days or maybe even weeks to really get a handle on my emotions through feeling them and practicing these techniques. But now sometimes it takes hours or even minutes. And like I celebrate that because I remember how hard it used to be to, you know, work through these triggers. And so it is a process, but it's so rewarding. And again, it's not to say you don't get triggered or you don't have like quote unquote negative emotions. It's just you learn how to navigate them better. Again, I always think of surfing because when you're surfing a wave, like you may have to get through some whitewash or some unpleasant stuff, but like when you can get on the face and really, you know, slide down the line, it's such an amazing feeling. And that's how it is navigating your emotions.
Absolutely. I was the same as you in that I was always running from my emotions through eating disorders, validation from men,
Yes.
food, through drugs, like through any type of distraction. And people always say things like, oh, like getting older is so hard and you're so tired, you're so this. I'm like, I feel better at 40 than I ever have in my life.
Same.
Because I think I'm in an emotionally healthy place. In my 20s, I had health issues constantly. Gut issues and all blood pressure issues, all kinds of like fainting spells, which like never happened. And I honestly think I also had like this like cystic acne. My hormones were completely unbalanced. I think it's because I never allowed myself to feel anything. I mean, I did go through one in particular traumatic breakup that really, really wrecked me and ravaged me. And I was very young. I'm in my early 20s. Don't have that prefrontal cortex that's developed.
Yeah.
And
breakups are hard at any age though, but I get what you're saying.
And you don't have any life experience or any tools. You're just lost. You are just like a lost little deer in the forest, a baby doe, and you are just trying to find your way. And it's so hard and overwhelming. And I just couldn't bear the feelings. I couldn't bear any of it, how it pressed on my already existing unworthiness wound. And I remember years later in not even mid-20s. It was in my later 20s. I did some energy work and I worked with this energy healer, and she was like, she healed through like massage therapy. So she can touch your body and feel where you're holding your emotions. And
Yeah.
she would like release them. And I remember she
Mm.
released the anger like out of my gut. And then anytime I would feel angry, I would feel intense stomach pains, like worse than any period
Interesting.
cramp, like
Yeah.
almost like contractions. Like I'm thinking about like having my babies, like that intense. Like it would come and go quickly, but it was like it forced me to feel those emotions. Like I don't even know how this stuff works, honestly, but she loosened some channels and I was feeling everything. And I'm like, no wonder I've been having all these health issues and feeling exhausted. Like
Oh, yes.
exhausted.
That's like a
Emotions
huge
are
thing
exhausting.
when you're
And
holding them in like that and repressing yourself. Yeah.
exactly. People don't realize it. They're like, why am I always tired? I need like, I need more coffee. I need 5 coffees a day. I need to take Adderall or whatever it is to like wake up. No, it's really a lot of it. It's not fine. You need to sleep. Yes, you're going to be tired if you don't take care of yourself. But people don't realize how much those emotions weigh on you and how exhausting it is to carry all of that around.
Yes. Did you ever have autoimmune issues?
Yeah. Oh, I have autoimmune issues.
Yeah,
Those
same.
don't even go away. They're just managed now.
I know.
Yeah.
And that's another thing we're not told, because I developed an autoimmune disorder. I have Hashimoto's.
Me too.
Not surprising based on our past.
Right.
But yeah, so in learning about it, it's caused by stress. All autoimmune disorders are. And it's like, why don't they teach us that? Because it's like, stress doesn't feel good emotionally. But I think if I would have known, it's kind of like if AIDS or something like cancer, I guess cancer is stress
Cancer
induced.
for sure. Yeah.
But it's like, I guess I wish I knew some of these things, because if they would have, there's like so much fear propaganda about other things. But if they would have put it into like about feeling stressed, maybe I would have paid more attention, because it doesn't feel good, but it's like there isn't enough motivation to change until,
Right.
like for me, there wasn't enough motivation to change until I hit rock bottom. And it's like, oh, my life is on the line.
Yeah, you absolutely have to hit that point of I cannot be here anymore. I cannot be here for one more second. Something's
Yeah.
got to give. What do you typically see with your clients? Like, I mean, I know what I see with mine. I mostly work with women struggling in their relationships, but and usually in my case, there's that one guy, I mean, they've had that type of guy in the past, but this one pushed them over the edge. This one's the one that made them realize, why do I keep living the same patterns over and over? Like I'm never gonna find my person. Am I too broken? Am I too damaged? So that's what I see. But with your clients, what is that breaking point where they are like, something's got to give. I can't do this anymore.
I hear a lot of it with relationships. And again, and I get it because I've been there, and you can probably totally empathize with your clients. But it's like, I think the thing is, they thought that person was the one, and they're expecting that person to give them the happiness and fulfillment, or give them the relationship that they want.
Right.
But the truth is, like, you don't need another person. Absolutely, being in a relationship with someone can enhance how you already are, but to give so much pressure on someone to live up to a certain standard just so you could be happy and fulfilled, it's like just such an, and again, I've been there, I get it, but I feel like most women who are seeking happiness and fulfillment, they're seeking it in relationships. And to your point, it takes like the one, quote unquote, the one that got away to help make them really want to get help.
Right. Yeah. So let's shift now and talk a little bit about masculine and feminine energy, because I know this is something that you also speak to. So you've spoken about masculine overdrive versus feminine embodiment. Can you explain what that means and how it showed up in your life?
Yes. So for most of my life, I was always in masculine energy, like the overachieving. I have to do things. Like it showed up a lot in work, because again, I was in corporate America for a long time. So it's totally a rat race of like you don't even get time to celebrate your accomplishments, because once you get a raise and promotion, it's like, okay, what's next? What can I do now? I need more money. Like, because for a long time, my goal was to make 6 figures. And then once I hit it, it's like I wasn't even happy. It's like, well, now how can I make the next milestone? And it was just so anticlimactic. So I definitely got caught up in overachieving in corporate America. I got caught up in overachieving with, again, I ran marathons. I went to the gym and lift weights. The only way I was able to like really check myself on lifting weights, I ended up developing a hernia that needed surgical repair because I was just lifting all heavy all the time. Like there was no off button for me. So I was definitely out of control. But again, like in my healing journey in my 40s, I'm learning more about feminine energy. And that was another huge disconnect with me in corporate America because I just started feeling like so unaligned, or like physically I would feel anxiety because it's like, this isn't who I am, because it's like I wanted to be myself in corporate America, but it's like just, and I worked in IT, so it's like very like alpha male dominated industry, and it's good to have a mix of both. But like when you're in your feminine energy, it's like you don't have to chase after things. It's just like naturally coming to you. And that's such an easier way to live. And I know it sounds counterintuitive because you want to be like hustling and doing things, and that feels more productive, but it's actually more productive to rest and just allow things to come to you. And that doesn't mean you don't take any action, but it's just, I don't know, just letting go of all that stress.
Right. It's just being more in that energy of flow, of
Yes.
being able to just be instead of constantly doing and doing. Would you say like that need to constantly do and perform is tied to like being a people pleaser? Like
Oh,
you had
yeah.
maybe a childhood where you were only shown love or, recognized, or your needs were only met when you performed a certain way?
Yes.
How do
Oh,
you
that
feel?
was definitely my origin story. Yeah. I feel like that's usually the case for most people, and or just in general, caring more about what other people think than what you think of yourselves. And again, I feel like for women that shows up a lot in dating,
Yeah.
because it's like you want the other person to like you so much, but it's like, do I even like this person?
Right.
You know?
Well, because just been so conditioned to be chosen. And
Yes.
so one line I've been using like over and over lately, especially because I have a book coming out soon all about
Oh,
detachment.
nice.
Yes, very excited. It's very necessary in this world we're living in. But is that so many of us just outsource our feelings of worth rather than self-source.
Yeah.
And we have to learn how to self-source these things. And every time I do a Q&A on Instagram, one question I always get is, how do I build self-worth? Like, not that it's something I can just answer in like a few
I
sentences.
know.
Not that it's something you can answer in a few sentences, but what would you say are the keys, the main pillars to building self-worth that is established and sustainable and doesn't fluctuate based on how the outside world reacts to you?
Yeah, to your point, it's like not something that's easily explained. So I don't want it to sound as simple as I'm probably going to say it.
Right.
I'm going to make 3 points.
Okay.
One is developing your intuition, because you know yourself better than anyone else does, because everyone else is going to have an opinion about what you should be doing, anything, what you should be wearing, all the things, but only you know what's best for you. And there's nothing wrong with asking other people for advice, but when you are so connected with yourself and your intuition, that is like such a high level of self-trust. So that way, when you ask other people for their opinions or you get unsolicited advice, you can put it through that lens of discernment, because ultimately you trust yourself to take care of yourself, have your own back, trust that you know what you're doing. It's just, and even people like, I'm super connected to my intuition, but I'm probably not even using it to the fullest extent because it's such a magical, I call it a superpower, but it's inherently something we all have within us. But it's just so magical and powerful. And like self-trust is a form of self-love. So when you can trust yourself at that absolute level, that is absolutely a huge aspect of self-love and self-worth. Another thing is boundaries, because boundaries is the highest form of self-respect that you can have, because it's like, this is what I tolerate in my life. So it's either, you're with me or you're not. And I'm again, it's not this simplistic because I didn't learn what a boundary was until I was 35. And it's not easy. Even now, it's not easy to set or enforce boundaries. It is easier, and it's absolutely worth it because it helps you understand what you deserve and what you allow in your life and what you tolerate or don't. And when you understand how to respect yourself, like again, like self-respect and self-trust are like the highest forms of self-love. So I think those are two really strong pillars of self-worth. And lastly, creating your own rules for life, because like for me, and this was a huge part of my decision to leave corporate America, because society systems or family systems, like they're just basically arbitrary rules that somehow along the line we just all decided to blindly follow. And it's like, for what reason? And so I developed my own rules in life. And that's what I call like my value system. Like I spoke to it a little bit earlier before, but like some of my values are I'm loyal to myself. I don't sweep things under the rug. I speak my truth. I'm authentic. And as long as I'm living with that value system, I really don't care what other people think. Like if I post something on Instagram and get criticized, I go through my value system. Was I speaking my truth? Was I being loyal to myself? Yes, 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 yes. Then I don't really care what they think. Because when you're living aligned with your values, you're living in integrity. And it's like, think about it. You can't really criticize someone who's acting in integrity. You can try, but it's weird, right? Like, oh, they're living according to their value system.
Right.
Like, how do you make fun of that?
Right. Absolutely.
But yeah, it's not that simplistic, but those are like three important elements, I think, to self-worth.
Yeah. And I do want to mention that this is why it is so helpful, powerful to work with a coach. Sometimes you can do it with a therapist. It seems like for you and also for me, therapy, that wasn't it for me. Like that helped. It was nice to have someone to talk to. Things didn't really start to shift for me until I started working with a coach. And it's the same. All of my clients also have therapists, and I would never knock therapy. I think that therapy and coaching a lot of the time can work really, really well in tandem. But I think the power of working with a coach is that you really get solid tools to implement. You know, it's not as easy as, okay, I want self-worth. Okay, like, no, that's not enough. Like first, yeah, absolutely. That's part of it. You have to make the decision. I'm ready to own my value, but you need the right tools to help you get there. And the right,
totally agree.
And a guide to understanding yourself on the deepest level, because all of this stuff lives in our subconscious and that's not easily accessed. So we have no idea why we're getting so triggered, why we're so reactive, why we're chasing after only the people that treat us like crap, and why we're getting the ick from the ones who would be so wonderful and loving. It's very hard to uncover all of that because it lives in the subconscious. And so you have someone on the outside who can help you untangle all of that, things really start to shift, and rapidly.
Yes. Oh, yes. And yeah, I don't knock therapy either because I know it does work for some people. But to your point, the reason why coaching was way more effective for me is because, first of all, it felt more bi-directional, because I felt like when I went to a therapist, it was just me talking. And it's like I could talk to a friend or someone else for free.
Right.
Whereas like a coach actually gives you guidance and helps you like my coach taught me, because like to your point, everything's going on in your subconscious. So I had to learn to question every single thing I did and why I did it. And it can be a little overwhelming at first, but then it becomes more automatic. But that self-awareness is what helps you determine your self-worth. But also he would always give me homework, like, okay, now do this, do that. And it's like actually putting it into practice. And that's what helped me. And that's what I find is helpful for clients, like actually changing their behaviors and changing your behaviors to reflect that self-worth or self-trust. That's what changes your internal beliefs. That's how you change your self-worth, is changing your internal beliefs, but it's through these actions and repetitions and behaviors.
And the implementation more than anything. Like it's not a passive process. You're not going to get it just by hearing information. It is by implementing. It is by, like, you know, you can hear all day that, oh, you should drink water. It's good for you. Like, yeah, like we all know this, but like, are you drinking as much water as you think? Most of us know. The answer is no. So that's why it helps so much to have someone holding you accountable and really propelling you forward. So, what would you say to someone who feels that they are too broken to find love? This was me for a very long
Oh
time,
yeah.
many of my clients. What would you say to them? Or what do you say to them? I imagine a lot of women come to you feeling this way.
Oh, for sure. And agree. I also felt this way. So if you feel that way, you are not alone. So, and this is another reason I kind of get disgruntled. I don't get me wrong. I love a good self-help book, but I feel like, and again, the reason I'm disgruntled about it is because in my 30s, I was reading a lot of self-help books, but I feel like a lot of times the message is you are broken and you need to fix X, Y, and Z about yourself. And this is why I call my coaching program Shine from the Inside, because we're all born with this light inside of us. Like, think about you as a little child. Like, for me, I always wanted to live in Hawaii. I always wanted to have a red convertible, which I have both of those things now. I loved writing. I wanted to be a writer, but I had like certain things that just lit me up. But my parents were like, oh, again, I'm just a child, but they're like, oh, you can't have a convertible because it's dangerous and the car insurance costs too much. You know what I mean? So as we go along life, we have all these things that start dimming our lights. And so then we start trying to, one of my favorite phrases is don't dim to fit in. So we start dimming to fit into these societal standards and whatnot. And shining from the inside, it's not about fixing anything about yourself. It's just about relighting that light inside of you, because when you are living from that space of internal happiness and internal validation, then you don't need anything outside of yourself. And that's the space where you understand I'm not broken. My light was being dimmed by all of these things that I was feeding into.
I love that.
Yeah, because whoever's listening, you're not broken. Because again, my internal belief for such a long time was that I didn't deserve to be loved. And it's because things outside of me were treating me that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that. That's beautiful. Okay, this has been incredible. I have loved this conversation. I have a few rapid fire questions for you.
Okay.
Ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. What is one morning ritual you swear by?
My morning ritual is I always journal. Usually what that looks like for me is I do gratitude, and then I connect it to my intuition all the time, but I specifically ask, like, is there anything I need to know? Or I ask my spirit guides, do you have any specific messages for me? Because I feel like if I'm busy and doing things, I may not be getting all the messages I should be. So I actually take the time to be intentional to receive messages. And then the last thing I do is I write out my daily intention. And I recently started doing it in a way where it's an I am statement. Because have you ever read The Parallel Universes of Self or heard of that book? But anyway, it's basically the way you become your future self it's like taking act as if on a different level, because act as if is acting, but like the parallel universes of self, it's like you actually are that person. So I use the I am statement to actually step into that identity.
I love that.
But in general, journaling is my morning ritual.
Okay, so I know you mentioned that there's been a lot of self-help books you didn't like, but what is one self-help book everyone should read?
Can I say two?
Sure.
Okay, one is You Are a Badass at Making Money by Jen Sincero.
She has heard this one either.
Oh my God.
I love the title though.
Okay. So she had an original book called You Are a Badass, and it's basically like self-help, like basically how to shine your light and be authentic. You Are a Badass at Making Money. It is geared toward money, but it is so powerful, and it still contributes to the higher cause of, shining your light and being yourself. So I recommend the original Badass book, but if you only read one, definitely You Are a Badass at Making Money. The other one it's by Neil Strauss. It's called The Truth. Do you know who he is?
Yeah, I know who he is. I haven't read that one yet.
So he wrote The Game, which is about his stint as a pickup artist, which I had read that. And it's hard to explain The Truth if you don't know anything about The Game, but in The Game, he was basically a player and he would manipulate women to sleep with them. But in The Truth, he's married and has a child. Well, it's his like journey to like getting married and having a child. And his transformation was so profound that I actually went to one of his healing intensives, which is how I ended up meeting my coach. I didn't work with my coach until years later,
Wow.
but first of all, that not only was the book profound, but it actually like led to a series of events in my own life that led to my own healing journey. But yes, those are my two favorite self-help books.
Amazing. I have to check them out. Okay. What is the biggest myth about self-love?
That it's just like spa days and like your skincare routine, which don't get me wrong, that is definitely part of it. Because for example, I used to pick my skin a lot, which goes into my childhood as well. And so a skincare routine did become part of my self-love, but it's so much deeper than that. Because again, I avoided the inner work for a very long time, but the inner work is how I learned to love myself, and the skincare routine and all that other stuff. It just enhances what I'm already doing internally.
Yeah, I love that. If you could give your younger self one sentence of advice, what would it be?
Honestly, I'd probably just hug her. But if I had to say anything to her, I would tell her that I love you and you deserve to be loved.
Oh, I love that. And last question, what is your personal definition of being glowed up?
It's a feeling. So I don't know how to describe it, because when you shine from the inside, you just feel it. And like I said before, other people feel it. Because I've also had people say to me, "Oh, you're glowing." And it's like, "Oh, really?" It's the feeling of being lit up inside. That's sorry if that's bland, but it's a feeling. So I don't know how to describe it. Yeah.
You'll know it when you see it, when you feel it. Amazing. This has been incredible. Please share where everyone can find you. Pimp yourself out.
My Instagram is Angie Hawkins 808, and my website is runningandslippers.com. You can find information about my book, Running in Slippers. You can also find information about my coaching program. I do offer a free call for new clients. And on this call, the purpose is to help you. So you can let me know what you're struggling with. And I do obviously have a coaching program, but if it's not for you, or if our personalities don't mesh, I know plenty of other coaches. I know other resources. So the goal is to help you and point you in the right direction. And lastly, I'm having an end of summer special for $1,000 off my coaching program, because I think there's a lot of emphasis on New Year's resolutions and starting out the new year. But the purpose of this promotion is to actually, if you're feeling like you're in a place of low self-worth, or maybe you just went through a breakup, whatever, the whole purpose of this promotion is to get you into coaching and go into 2026 on fire, so that you can already start off the year and you don't have to make any resolutions.
Amazing. And you are freaking me out that it is going to be 2026. Like, how did that even happen? Okay. Thank you so much for being here. I hope that all of you enjoyed the episode. Please remember to rate, to review, to subscribe, to follow, and please share your feedback. I love hearing from you. Sabrina@sabrinabendori.com. And I will see you next time. Bye.
Thank you.